there's something really beautiful about being in the present moment and having time and space away from the device. I am someone who is really sensitive to overwhelm. Like I get overwhelmed very easily. And as a recovering perfectionist, it's like, oh, I had this in my mind planned out that I was going to do this and post this and share this today. Like I'm going to do it all. And if I don't, I like feel like I've let myself down, and I'm just not willing to live like that anymore because it left me feeling like I was constantly depleted.
Hey, this is Chad Namiro.
And I'm Kelley Namiro. Welcome to the Balancing Chaos podcast,
a lifestyle podcast where we will interview guests about wellness, business, and just about everything in between.
Our goal is to help you develop a lifestyle that promotes health, wholeness, and success. Through our conversations, we hope to inspire you to live a beautiful, full, and joyful life as you navigate balancing the chaos.
We hope you enjoy.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the show. So today really doesn't require a big intro because we are here with a solo episode. This is something that you guys have been asking us for, and we know you love it because when we did our very first season back in 2021, which seems like a million years ago now, our best episode that we recorded out of all 10 was the one of us. And in that episode, we talk a lot about our relationship and how we met and what's changed since the first time we dated. So if you want to go back and listen to that, if you're new here, like it's a great way to kind of get to know us more and to kind of get to know, about our relationship. So we're probably not going to touch on that too much today, but there are a few different topics of conversation that I had put up on my social media to see I guess a question box to see what you guys were interested in hearing from us about. And so we have a few different areas we're going to take this. And so let's jump right in. You have anything to say?
No, I'm fascinated that people care about what we think. You're such a good guest.
We're pretty intriguing. I think that one of the places where we can start in terms of this whole thing is with this conversation around social media and both of our thoughts and views on it and how those thoughts and views have changed over time and kind of what we see the positives of it as, and then what we see the negatives as, and where we may have differing opinions. I think the reason I want to start there is because this is day, 30 something that I've been off, 33, 34, where I, at the end of February, came back from a trip for my birthday, deleted the app, which is something I've done pretty regularly, twice a year since we tried to get pregnant with Enzo. And I've shared that story on social media. We had 2 recurrent pregnancy losses, and getting pregnant with our second child was one of the most important things in the world for me. And Chad had really tried to prompt me to look at things different and see things different. And so there were so many shifts that I had made during that time, like not drinking anymore, which we'll also talk about on this episode, eating more protein, and just a bunch of things. But one of the things that I was really resistant to, and you can attest to this, which I know you will, is that I gave up social media. And I wasn't, when we first had the conversation, willing to do that at all. I was actually really resistant to it. But now it feels like this really incredible vacation that I get to take whenever I decide to do it. So I did one that was a 4-week one back in October. Just this whole March, I've been off. And every time I do it, I feel like I get something refreshing from it. So can you tell us, honey, what are your, because again, our views on it are different. I use it for my business a lot, but what are your views on social media? And what are your thoughts on it? And how did you kind of make the decision a while ago, way before me, to take a minute to separate yourself from it?
I think I was like everyone else at first, and I had, the cascade of social media starting with I think Friendster and MySpace, and then that graduated into
I've never
Facebook.
even heard of Friendster. Friendster?
Yeah, it was like a derivative of MySpace.
Oh my God.
A little older. I'm sure many on the pod, know what I'm talking about. But back in the day, this was before smartphones, and so there's the instance of social media, of course, but smartphones are what really brought it into the forefront of our not every daily life, but practically hourly, or in many cases
Yeah.
multiple times in an hour. And so I had Facebook early on, and I think Facebook was,
And you had an Instagram later down the road. You posted personal
yeah.
stuff to it. We actually, in the beginning of our relationship, when we were broken up, so we dated for 4 years, for those of you guys who didn't know, and then we broke up, and we would attack each other on Instagram like little children. Oh
No,
my
I mean,
God.
I use Facebook, mostly for social updates. I think here's what I'll say social media is very good for, and I still think this application applies today, is it allows friends and relatives. A lot of the older generation actually still uses Facebook versus millennials still use or more so use Instagram. It allows you to keep in touch with them, and they can see your life. And so if you're posting pictures of your vacations, your children, that kind of thing, it actually is pretty good for that.
And I think that one of the things that you've seen too, and for sure, is that for me, that's really how I've grown my business. The tool of Instagram, and that's what made
you're an influencer, the model.
But I'm also a coach, more importantly, a coach. And so
relax, I got it.
the resistance to letting go of it for weeks on end was oh my gosh, am I going to be able to book more clients? Am I going to be able to generate revenue? All of those things. There's a fear-based mindset around that I really had to let go of. But what I really recognized is that the positives that come out of it when you take space from it, because it is such an addictive application, far outweigh the potential downside. And yes, it is so beautiful because there are so many friends and connections and amazing things that I've made there. But I think there has to be this really delicate balance with a lot of different boundaries that live there. I was actually reading this statistic that I think you'll find interesting the other day that said 57% of women would prefer to be on Facebook or Instagram than have sex with their partner.
Yeah. I mean, that's sad, but you have to understand the engineering behind this. And this is the world I come from, right? Is technology.
Yeah.
It's an extremely addictive product. Everyone kind of knows that, but do they really know it? This thing was specifically engineered to be highly addictive and to give very quick and potent dopamine and serotonin hits, right? And so it is engineered for your mind to be very addicted to this, right? And it's very instant gratification.
And the other thing is that it raises your cortisol and your stress hormones, right? Because you're constantly trying to process new information every time you're opening the app. Your nervous system really doesn't have time to settle.
Yeah.
And you can become also addicted to that heightened sense of cortisol, where it's rather than just being bored or standing in the Starbucks line or going to the bathroom, you're instead heightening your nervous system every time because you're opening the phone to upload new information into your brain. And so your attention span starts to become smaller.
Yeah, that's why I think you have so much ADD in the world. That's why, I mean, everything, when you're at a dinner with just you and someone else and they go to the restroom, what do most humans these days usually do? Yeah. They don't take a deep breath, assess their surroundings, have a thought of their own. They usually pick up their phone and begin scrolling.
Yeah.
It's too hard not to. And so, the reality is for me, and there's a host of other issues with social media, right? I think they're kind of well documented.
I think you should talk about what our biggest, I guess, it's not point of contention, but it's where we see things a little bit differently on that.
Yeah, it's very damaging, right? From a mental perspective, it really affects your cognitive ability.
Right.
It really affects your ability to stay focused, on any given task, because Instagram specifically, it's very fast, right? You're scrolling from picture to picture in most cases. Stories really change the game for this. And so your mind gets very used to very erratic attention spans, right? Versus like you don't really pull up a picture and study it and read the captions. And that's just really not how it's done. And so it affects your ability to focus.
I think the body image thing that we've talked about in terms of like, you know, I've seen it impact like people, I mean, including myself, like
it's more so social, like from a mental perspective though.
But it is mental. It's like if you're looking at somebody else's body and then you're comparing that to your own, especially for women, it's like, it's so damaging. Right. So there's that piece of it. And what I was talking more about was like the way that you see it in terms of like security and like how you see that as a potential.
Yeah.
Like, can you tell us like a little bit more about your thoughts on that?
So just to kind of keep it on track. So it does rewire your brain in a number of different ways.
Right.
And I think that can affect your attention span. I think it can deeply affect your ability to connect with others. I think it can affect
I'll
sleep.
attest to that because I will say like in the times where I am really boundaried with social media and I actually like adhere to my boundaries or like I'm actually having time off, like Chad and I are so much more deeply connected and our relationship feels so much better. Like, would you say that?
Yeah, sure. No, of course. It's like a given. I mean, it's obvious at this point, right? Like these aren't.
It's like, it is really obvious, but it sounds really simple, but it is the truth. It's like, obviously if I have more time where I'm not like creating content or posting on stories, it's like, we're spending more time together. We're having better, more deep, meaningful conversations. And yeah, I think, and not only am I more connected to you, I'm more connected to our kids
and your surroundings. So,
yeah. So keep going.
Look, you just have to see it for what it is. It's not like you're an addict or you're at some disadvantage, but the reality is it's just too compelling to be addicted to. That's like the truth. And so first, it's like, it's like the first one of the first steps of like AA. First, you have to admit
you have a problem,
like,
and that was
like most people have a problem.
Most people have a problem, and I think that this is a really good opportunity for our listeners, anyone out there, to take a step back and to look at your relationship with your phone in general. Like, how many times a day are you checking email? How many times a day are you? I mean, Chad like will tell you is like one of the things he's working on is like he loves sports betting, and that's like an app on his phone, right? It's like, where is your phone taking away your presence with the people around you and like the life that you have that you want to be focused on? And like, does it cause arguments between you and the people that you love most? Or like, do you feel disconnected and like not as intentional with your time? And then be more specific about social media. Like, do you feel worse when you get off the app? Are you comparing yourself to other moms? Are you comparing yourself to other people, like to other people's bodies? Like, do you feel like you should be able to do it all and everybody on that app is doing it all and you're not, and you're falling short? I think that that's a really important thing to look at. And like, how much time are you spending on there on average day to day? And are you feeling more like overwhelmed? Are you trying to like, one of the things I used to do, I was trying to like do my makeup or get ready while I was like looking at other people's stories, and like my nervous system would feel like it was on fire.
There's like a beauty in boredom.
There really is.
There really is. It's just nothing you really experience these days, sadly, or our kids.
I will definitely say that I feel like I have gotten to experience that in the last month, and it's been really nice. Like to be able to say like, okay,
yeah, but even you're not, no offense, but even, and we all do this, and I do it. I'm certainly guilty, but like, okay, you're not as social, but you're in the bathtub and you're playing a podcast. I mean, look, there's just like endless levels of content, and
to consume. Totally.
In my opinion, you just need to space yourself out from your phone in general, and tactically the ways to do that, and I'm not the best at this either, are and we've heard it from a lot of people we've had on the pod, or to leave it upstairs if you sleep downstairs. When you go into a restaurant, you and your spouse potentially leave it in the car. I mean, you just need to kind of protect yourself in that way
from yourself. Yeah,
I'll be the first to admit I'm the first one at a restaurant where if you go to the bathroom, it's like, I'm going to check if, I'm winning that basketball game or something or whatever it is. And so, the good news is it's trackable at this point. There's apps on your phone like screen time.
You are so data driven that's
see,
helpful for you. I think for a lot of
that's how you have to be. Like, to set a goal like that, it needs to be like quantitative. Like, I want to spend half the amount of time on my phone. I mean, you can look at screen time and it's going to tell you exactly how. It's like very empirical.
Yeah.
So all that to say, and just one last thing around, one of the things that bothered me the most about social media, and it's kind of like a foregone conclusion or not well understood, but like well documented, I'd say, is what really started to bother me is just people's inability to be in any sort of experience. There's like this obsession with documentation at all times, and then in turn posting it on social, whatever you're doing. But like if you go to a game, and the recent example was LeBron just broke the all-time scoring record. Okay. And so I'm watching this on TV, and there's a lot of pictures and discussions around this afterwards. But like, there's a picture of him doing the last jump shot. There's a sea of people. How many people, had their phones out versus just
being in that
witnessing
moment.
That event? It was literally 100%. The only person that I saw that didn't have their phone out was Phil Knight, the founder of Nike. He was in the first row.
I think I told you
queued in.
I think I told you about, remember when I was telling you about how when I was living in New York and I was driving past that Whole Foods and that girl got hit by a car, and people took out their phones to record it versus somebody picking up the phone and calling 911. Like, that is the problem with our society today. It's like, what? Like, what are people thinking? What are people doing? Like, how is that your first reaction to pull up your phone? And one of the things that I was thinking, like, I think like you said, to wrap this conversation up in a bow is, as I come out of this break that I've taken from social media in the next couple of weeks, I don't know when it'll be. But like, I think a lot about every time I do this, I get something new from it. I gain something. I gain some sort of insight. And like, I was thinking when we were driving home from our date last night, I'm like, wow, like, nothing on this date was documented. And like, it felt really good for him.
You have to get comfortable
for
with that.
him. And it felt really good for me. And like, normally I would be like, oh my gosh, like I got to take a picture of the food or like something, one of those things. And it was like, no, this felt really nice to just like be in a moment, like with my husband. Not to say that I don't do that, like, but like it's much more likely to happen when I'm completely off social media. So that's one thing.
You have to get out of the whole validation thing.
It's such a source of external validation. Right
now, it's like a beautiful thing, or at least was for me. Now I've gone from certainly not caring to just not really wanting anyone to know what I'm up to. And then there's a beauty in it, because like,
for me, I have
to realize who your true friends are.
Totally, because you keep in touch with them.
Yeah, like.
But like for me, it's like
all you.
I ask myself now before I post something, is this coming from a place of fear that like I haven't posted enough today, or like my audience is going to be like disappointed, or is this posting coming from like a place of love where I like actually want to share this moment, and like I actually want to share this experience, and I actually want to share like vulnerable feedback that is going to help somebody in something that they're going through. And like that allows me to really make a good choice. The other thing that I was thinking about that came from this experience is that like my camera roll day to day, like when I'm on, is like
fucking absurd.
You go through and you're like trying to like pick family photos for a book, and it's like next to impossible. But like this month, I think I have like maybe 20 or 30 photos like total. And like most days I have more than 20 or 30 photos and videos. And so it just is like satisfying in a way to be like, nothing was documented, and like still so much beautiful like stuff that like we'll share down the road like happened this month. Like so much amazing stuff for our family happened this month.
Yeah.
And it didn't have to be documented to be able to be special. So that was one thing. And then the last thing that I'll say that I recognized about this is that for me, it still is a work in progress every single day. And like, that is something to be able to give myself compassion for. And I think it will.
I don't think you're ever able to have 100%.
I think when you're running a business online, it makes it, like I said, even harder. But like, no matter who we are in our society, right? Like we live in an age of information. We live in an age of technology. And so it's really up to us to be very clear about what we want the boundaries to be. Like, one of the things I learned about myself this month was like, I love having 1 hour to myself between like me getting the kids ready for the day and then having to start calls and see clients.
Yeah, if you can restrict that first hour, and it's very hard, but again, there's like ways to do it, like literally keeping your phone very far away from you. If you can restrict that first hour from technology, I found that to be very helpful.
Yeah. And if you can't do an hour, start with 15 minutes.
Because it's stress. Like, you have to understand how the brain works. When you wake up, you're assessing stress, and then you get on your phone, and emails are usually task driven, deadline driven, and so it's all just stress.
And I think that when you think about it from the perspective of social media, because that's what this conversation has really been about, it's like, and you're talking about the phone being a source of stress. It's like, you might think you're decompressing, but you're looking at somebody else, and because we're human beings, you are naturally comparing your life and your morning and what's happened to you within the first hour of the day to what you see everybody else doing. And so it may be subconscious. Ridiculous. Yeah, but it's like, that's also a source of stress. And so how can you separate yourself? What do you want the boundaries to be? And like, how might it, if you feel like you're somebody coming from somebody who was this way, if you feel like you are somebody who literally cannot take 15 minutes away from your phone. I remember we went to Joshua Tree like 2.5 years ago. The idea of turning my phone off and not being on Instagram for literally one weekend was so anxiety inducing. You are the person that needs it the most. I promise you that. I promise you, you are the person who needs that space from your device the most if you feel like it is literally impossible.
So my predictions are there already is a massive regression, because you're seeing all the mental health effects now and all these sensory deprivation tanks. And, Aaron Rodgers just did this retreat in darkness. I mean, this is why these things are becoming so popular, because, there's really real material effects from these phones on the mind. And so I think you're going to start to see a pretty large regression.
I already kind of think you have. Like, if I think about, I know you're not on social media, but I think about like the influencers that I follow and that I like to watch, like, now all their content is just ads. Like, it's literally all ads. Like, people share way less personal content than they did 2 to 3 years ago.
It's probably more of a business element, but
no, yes, but like it used to be a nice mix and a nice blend. Now people are pulling away more because I think that people are just kind of like, they've had enough. And that's not to say that, like, for any of the people who have been following me for the last 3 years, that like, I'm going to be completely off of it forever. And like, I'm not going to share personal stuff, because a part of me does love that. But it is to say that there's something really beautiful about being in the present moment and having time and space away from the device. I am someone who is really sensitive to overwhelm. Like, I get overwhelmed very easily. And as a recovering perfectionist, it's like, oh, I had this in my mind planned out that I was going to do this and post this and share this today. Like, I'm going to do it all. And if I don't, I like feel like I've let myself down, and I'm just not willing to live like that anymore, because it left me feeling like I was constantly depleted.
I remember a time in my life when springtime would hit, and immediately I would be searching for a new trainer or Googling all of the 7-day juice cleanse, 14-day detoxes so that I could get myself in shape for summer. And what I didn't realize at this time was that all of that was a complete waste of my time, of my energy, of my resources. And I look back on that just wishing for those hours and all of that energy and brain power back. The decisions that I was making for my body were coming from a place of punishment rather than from a place of love. And it wasn't until I started meditating and I started doing the work, the real work on myself, that I recognized that I needed to nourish my body with both movement and food and mindset work if I ever wanted my body to love me back in a sustainable way.
And that's why the WBK membership, that I release meditations where I deeply connect you with yourself, and blood sugar balancing recipes to nourish you on a cellular level, and low impact movement to support the delicate balance of your hormones, really gets you the results that you're looking for, where it starts to become a lifestyle. It starts to become who you are. I can tell you firsthand that both myself and my members, my private clients, all of us have seen the most incredible results from the WBK method. It's so different than your typical diet and a restrictive approach that we're taught from diet culture from a very early age. As a 33-year-old mom of 2, this is the leanest I've ever been, the most energy that I've ever had, and the best that I have ever felt in my freaking body. And it can be that way for you too. So right now, with the code Balancing Chaos, all one word, BALANCINGCHAOS, you can get 10% off your annual membership for the WBK method and get new weekly content, plus a library of hundreds of workouts, recipes, meditations, with a 7-day reset and a 30-day challenge, all to get you started. So use the code Balancing Chaos, again, all one word, to start your 7-day free trial and see, when you love your body back, how your body starts to love you.
Privacy is a major concern, and I don't think anyone really thinks about it, but look at the things going on right now with AI and data privacy, and basically like anything you ever post to the web is there forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not enough parents, in my opinion, are thinking about these things, because first of all, the minute you post your child on the internet in any way, shape, or form, like you're pretty much
there forever.
Yeah, it's there forever. You're violating their privacy from the minute you do it.
And I'm not going to like sit here and like, I don't want to sugarcoat anything for our listeners. Like, I think it is really important that we're honest about this conversation, because it was something that we had some really like heated debates about in our house, where it was like Chad didn't want our kids on social media. And like, it was something that I was like, well, I do. And like, you know, at the end of the day, like, they're there, and the photos are there, and they're there forever. But what I have realized over the last, you know, like, what is it, 3 years since West was born, is that like, one, like both of our opinions really do matter in this. And like, two, it's up to me to really protect and like preserve his privacy. So it's like, if he's ever in a place where he says, Mom, I don't want you, because he's old enough to tell me now, like, I don't want you to film this, or I don't want you to record this. Like, I completely respect that. I completely respect, you know, not sharing things about like where they are, or that would give away anything about that. I never post in real time when I'm with my kids.
But, you know, you don't have their consent.
Right. No, but like at the end of the day, that's what your issue is that like it's.
But yeah, it doesn't, you know, maybe they're on board or maybe they're not. But even if they say, hey, I'd rather not be on the internet.
They already are.
Right. So they already like violated their privacy. So yeah, I just think people need to think about it. It's a different world than it used to be.
It is. And it's like, what I didn't consider at the beginning of all of this was that me sharing with, you know, 60,000 people is completely different than
60,000
me
strangers. Not to mention it's a public account. Like most people, it's a town square. Anyone can come in and out.
Right. And like is different than me sharing on like a private account like most people would. And so like I said, it's just been a real learning experience with our kids, and with our kids being on social, and like how we want to navigate that going forward. But I think the reason we're bringing that up and that we're opening up and sharing it with you guys is that you guys can start to consider like, how do I want to share my kids? And like, do I want to, because like I said, if we were to go back, you know, 3 years, like things may have been done differently.
I just think if you make your account private, that solves the majority of the issues. If it's a private account and it's curated and you know the people that are viewing, then that's like a social sharing mechanism.
With like you said, like what with
accounts,
it makes
no
it
idea.
Yeah, you don't have any idea. And so,
I will say that I'm still opposed to all these pictures of my children, but you win some, you lose some.
all right. So I think that was a really good conversation. And I think that our listeners are going to really like the information that they can kind of glean from that and take away and like really think about versus just like running through life, on autopilot when it comes to technology, because that's what I know that I did for a really long time. So with respect to alcohol, let's have this conversation. I guess let's take it back all the way to like when COVID first hit, and like we were like not leaving our house every night, and I remember like when it first started, and like we had just had West, and I was like 3 months postpartum, and it was like the big lockdown where like we literally couldn't go anywhere. Like me and you would make like martinis every night at like 4. Like we were like,
I don't know if it's that aggressive, but yeah, I was drinking a lot.
Definitely got into a habit, or we would have a glass of wine or whatever.
That's stressful.
It was super stressful. And then, like I said, we were trying to get pregnant, and we had our 2 pregnancy losses. And so it was when I was thinking about that, like I was like, what are all of the things that I can do that are in my control that might help this workout? And so one of the things that I did was I cut out alcohol. It's been a decision for me that has felt really good. And I know that like it was something that was a little bit laughable to you when I first started. And I know that there are a lot of people out there who I've talked to who are like, oh, it's something I've considered, but like I'm worried that my partner would think that I'm lame, or like not think that I'm fun anymore, or whatever the case may be. Like once I made that choice and like I was really sound in it and I was really confident in it, Chad noticed that like I felt better, and that like he was completely supportive. And so I think that if you have a partner and you're questioning that, it's like you have to do what's right for you. And if that person like truly loves and respects you, they're going to respect whatever your decision it is that you decide to make with that.
Challenging. Some couples like to go to cocktail bars or split a bottle of wine. I mean, it's challenging.
It is challenging, but it's like when you have a reason behind it and a why behind it, whoever it is that's your partner, like I said, like if they
it makes
really
it a lot
love
easier if you're both kind of in the same.
It does make it easier if you're on the same page, but like for a hot minute there, we weren't. But like now, I guess, well, let's bring it into this era. Now, what you've really decided is that you're taking some space from it, and you may not be as regimented about it as I am, but you're definitely drinking a whole lot less than you were. So talk to us about that choice and like why you decided to make that choice.
Yeah, I don't say absolutely no to anything in life. Like, generally I ate a lot of plants, but if I want a steak, I'm gonna have it. Generally I don't drink during the week, but if we're out on a Wednesday and I want a cocktail, I'll do it. I don't have anything.
But you don't really do that.
I don't generally, but like I don't like what my point is.
You don't like being put in a box.
Like fast and hard rules.
Yeah.
Around everything, right? Because life is meant to be enjoyed. I think it's just too restrictive, personally. I
think it really started with your gut stuff, right?
No, it started with like our kids, honestly. I mean, look, it's not good for you. Everyone knows that. It has a whole host of issues on the body. And since our kids were born or shortly thereafter, you start to just, you love them, and it's simple. You want to be around as long as you can. You want to start to do whatever you can to be as healthy as you can and have as much vitality as possible so you can be there for them. Like that's like the easy way to describe it. And so, generally that involves cutting out things that aren't good for you, diet, alcohol, other things, all the things that are known to be detrimental to your health.
Talk to us about how it was making you feel though, like when you would drink.
I mean, look, outside of wine, which I just am obsessed with, and I love the culture of it and that whole thing. I mean, generally I was leveraging alcohol like many to relieve stress, like take the edge off, like don't like sugarcoat it.
If you're working on your relationship with it, I think it comes down to the question of like, what are you using it for? Why are you drinking like every night? Like why do you gravitate towards it? And if it is something like that for like stress management, like what are other things that you can do and put in place, like to either deal with the stress and deal with the stressor, or if the stressor is like kids or something like that, then what are other like proactive self-care ways that you can take care of yourself day to day that might feel so like, let's say you're stressed out about like a really toxic relationship and like that feels really shitty, or like a really toxic job. It's like, okay, then like leave the job and don't drink to cope with it. But if it's like a stressor, like I said, that you can't get rid of, like what are proactive self-care ways that you can start to take care of yourself more that will help you to manage the stress more effectively than alcohol? Because the reality is that the alcohol is actually going to make you more stressed. It raises your cortisol levels. It raises the levels of inflammation in your body. It is, when we talk about stress and health, like it is a stressor. Like it's a stressor on your liver. Like there are so many different things. And so it's really not helping you manage stress because you're not sleeping well when you're drinking. Like there are so many things.
Yeah, that was another thing. I wear the Whoop every day. And like, if you want to have any understanding of like from a data perspective, how bad alcohol is, just wear a Whoop on a night that you're not drinking versus drinking. I mean,
you'll see the difference.
Your heart rate's like, in my case, it was like 15 beats more per minute. And your variability is exponentially worse.
And you would get way less REM sleep.
Yeah, I mean, you get older too. You know, these hangovers get nastier. I was getting really bad anxiety if I had really any more than like 2 drinks, even sometimes just that. And so
that's the other thing. It's like you think you're using it to like cope with stress, but then the next day the anxiety is stress. It's like, was this worth it?
It definitely compounds.
So what I want you to do is, one, talk about the impact for you, if any, that you have noticed on your digestion since you cut way back on alcohol. And 2, talk about some of the practices and things that you put into place that have helped you cope with stress more effectively, versus going to a glass of wine every night after work.
For me, I really try to not drink during the week. That's like the number one. Right, like any school night, it's a facetious way of saying it, like a work night, right? Like I'm really good with that type of an approach. So like I can have a cocktail or a glass of wine on Saturday, Sunday, but like Monday through Friday when I'm working, that's the heaviest time of the week. I'm with my kids. Time is short. You need to be really efficient with your time, and so that's where I started. And I started feeling really good. The other reality is when you start feeling good and you get further and further away from it, you get addicted to the feeling, right?
I mean, you guys, he just went to a conference this week, a 3-day conference. And like normally at those things, everyone's drinking at night. Like that's the culture, right? And like he didn't drink at all the entire conference. And one of the things that he said when he came home was like, I literally feel like I can he would go work out in the morning and like I could like take on versus like laying in bed and like feeling anxious and then like feeling like overwhelmed about going to the conference the next day. Like, so it really does make such a difference when you are really intentional about the timing of it all.
Yeah, there's no way you can drink every day and not be less productive as a parent, in your job. It's just a reality of what it does to your brain. Again, it's really detrimental. So I got really addicted to that feeling. And then you get further and further away from it. And like anything in your body that I've noticed, like sugar and other examples, once you get away from it, you start to get turned off by the idea of it. And so that's kind of where I'm at. I actually don't really even have a desire to in most cases.
Yeah.
So for me,
practices.
Yeah. I do, but like, I'll be dead honest here. Like I still need, and I'm looking constantly for like a way to take the edge off. So I've explored with other more sustainable.
What do you think that is? Do you think that's a product of like just how stressful our society is when it comes to work, or do you think it's work and kids, or like, tell me what you think?
I think we're in a really unnatural place in society. Like, this isn't natural. You're not supposed to get up and be working this much.
Yeah.
And then, you have to sustain a marriage on top of that. In my case, you have to sustain being a good parent, and making your kids conscious and empathetic humans. I mean, it's just never was supposed to be this busy, if you will.
Yeah.
Right.
And
we're supposed to just
travel a lot. Like, we have so much.
It's just a lot.
Yeah.
So, everyone's so obsessed with efficiency and productivity, and, it's valid, but it's all kind of bullshit. At the end of the day, people don't need like efficiency and productivity. They need rest and like they need to turn their brain off. And so
I talk about that all the time. My people.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I wake up, I do a lot of Wim Hof stuff. I haven't been doing it lately because we're in the middle of a move, but I do a lot of the cold plunging. But like for me, it's a breathing exercise right when I wake up. I'm really trying not to look at my phone. Gratitude journaling, although it's been like hard for me. I haven't been that consistent, but just like those first like 20 so minutes, I think the idea is to ground yourself in your body and reflect on what you're grateful for.
mm-hmm.
There's even like really incredible research around making your bed. It's like accomplishing the first task. That's effectively what cold plunging is doing. It's really good for your body, but it's a really challenging task that no one wants to do the first thing in the morning. And so if you go out and do it, you're going to feel really fulfilled. You're going to feel like you accomplished something, and that like sets the tone for the rest of the day. And you're just more productive. The more productive you are, the more happy you are oftentimes, the less and less you like want, things like alcohol and let's call them more sinister, less healthy activities one can do. So
yeah, and I think that what you're finding is from those things, whether it's the cold plunge or the breathing, like those things have a really big impact on how you feel in your body.
Yeah, sure.
Right. And then the long-term effects of those things are, and not even long-term, but longer term, where it's like the next day, it's like you don't feel more anxious like you would with 2 cocktails. So it's like, I'm going to go to those things and gravitate towards those things versus the thing that I know maybe in the moment, because we're such an instant gratification culture, is going to make me feel good. But then like the next day, it's going to impact me. And like you said, one of the things that you've been doing too, like at night, is like experimenting with other kind of alternative things.
That's the beauty of it too.
Kava and
this isn't
CBD
new,
and
or like I'll say that this is a massive trend right now. There's a lot of people consciously deciding not to drink alcohol anymore, and so there's a lot of really interesting products coming out of the market. Many of which are just like alcohol just is like the worst as far as how it makes you feel, right? I mean, it's just guaranteed when you have over a certain amount, or even like in some cases a small amount, you're just going to feel poor. And so there's a lot of good alternatives. Yeah, like Kava is coming onto the scene. That's a good one. Takes the edge off, no adverse effects from what I can tell.
Tell them like the brands so that people can actually go and try this stuff.
Yeah. Like somewhat hesitant because it's a little unproven, right? Like there's not a lot of regulation or long-term research around some of this stuff.
But you're doing it, so just share.
Yeah, one of the big ones that you'll see if you're in LA around like Erewhon, et cetera, is Feel Free. It's a blend of Kava and Kratom.
Mm-hmm.
There's one right here next to me called New Brew, which
I'll tell you guys, I have had it before, but like not New Brew, but Feel Free, and like, I mean, it does like it feels. I honestly feel like better than a cocktail. Like you definitely,
it's kind of more
definitely notice a
There's
difference.
no hangover.
There's no hangover. There's no side effects. You feel like kind of like you want to have conversation and like bubbly, and it's nice. But again, Chad makes a very good point that we don't have long-term research and data around this. Like we do with alcohol. And so it's like, be cautious as you're using these different herbs.
Yeah. Anything that feels good is going to,
and making sure that you're using anything like that as an alternative in moderation.
But nootropics are another one. Those are really popular at this point. Rogan talks about them all the time.
You be like focused and stuff like that.
Yeah, just things to make you your best self.
Right.
Whether that's productivity or de-stressing, etc. there's just so many products out there.
Right.
Obviously, cannabis and all the derivatives. I've been around for a minute now, but exploring with those. I'm not a big cannabis guy. I generally don't like it, but CBN is something that I think we both enjoy. That's a non-psychoactive byproduct of cannabis, and it's really good for sleep and stress relief. Yeah. So I'm always exploring.
So we're like, I think
I'm not gonna be like fully sober. That's just like
that's not
how
you.
I'm built.
But you have kind of made this leap into like what you said, like where it's like you don't even really want it anymore. And
you definitely,
especially with like what's specific to alcohol.
Look, I'll give you an example, just summarizing here. Like, you were praising me or whatever it was for not drinking at the conference, but I was at dinner with 3 other people that also weren't drinking. So this is like it's
a movement,
common trend.
Yeah. No, I saw a story on Good Morning America.
A lot of people are doing this. And
they're like talking about sober weddings now. Like it's a thing. Like people are doing this. It's a thing. And I think that
it's the same thing as Instagram. Once you stop giving a shit what other people think and like caring, do they want me to have a cocktail? Is it weird if I don't? Just the subtle art of not giving a fuck is a great book.
My God.
Like, once you stop giving a shit, then you won't care.
Let's all stop giving a shit what other people think. I can't tell you how many times I've heard from other people like, I had a cocktail or I had a drink because I was so nervous about like what my girlfriends were going to think of me, or they said I was lame. Why the fuck do you care? Yeah. Like literally, if my friends say that I'm lame, I'm like, no, you're lame. You're lame. Like you're drinking and you're lame. Whatever. Like who cares? You have to do you. You have to do what feels right for you and good for your body. And if you're living according to like what other people think, let me just tell you, you are never going to be happy.
Yeah. So forget this like dry January bullshit, because then you go right back to your normal ways. Like what you want to do is, in my opinion, get to a place like what I've done where it's like, I'm not going to drink during the week. I'm not going to drink Monday through Wednesday. And that's like a lifetime thing. And see how you feel. You're going to start to be able to have the data.
Wait, before we move on to like just a couple wellness practices and wrap this up, tell us about your gut health experience.
I'm really lucky. I'm 36. I've never had surgery. I've never taken medicine. I've just never had to deal with things. Usually I just ignore them and they go away. That's like generally my strategy. I don't really go to the doctor. I've never been to an ophthalmologist, like the list goes on. I'm not like boasting. I'm just saying I'm very, very fortunate to have
your health,
my health. But yeah, I'm getting older. And in this case, I never had like stomach pain. Or stomach issues. I don't think I've ever even had like food poisoning. I've had stomach flu, but it was weird. So I got stomach flu, rotavirus.
Back in July.
I don't know if anything was happening before then. It's kind of gross, but just generally I don't like feel that great after I eat, especially carbs. I was getting like bloated and I was farting.
Yeah, gassy.
I thought that was just like normal. Apparently it's not. So I got stomach flu, and from that point on, I think like the symptoms were a little more exacerbated, and I just started like feeling even worse after I ate, and I would get these bouts, which haven't happened in a while.
Because you took care of it.
Yeah. So
we ended up doing a test, like a gut health test on Chad.
Right.
Where we ran some stuff and we found out that like there was some dysbiosis. We won't get specific on it, but that was going on in his gut. And we addressed it with a few different things. But one of the things that he did, as we've talked about, was like really, and it wasn't completely like, again, because he's not a rigid person. Like he is not like a rule-based person. It was not where 100% he cut out alcohol for 8 weeks, but it was very, very limited. It was much more limited than it had ever been
sugar
in his life. And especially wine, where he like loves red wine. He would drink things more like, a tequila soda or something like that because of the way that the wine ferments in the gut. And
alcohol turns into sugar. I don't think everyone knows that. I didn't know that.
I don't think a lot of people know that, like, the way that alcohol impacts the gut, it does cause more dysbiosis because it's feeding the bad bacteria in the gut that feed off of sugar. Because like you said, alcohol turns to sugar. It makes the gut leaky. So your colon is one cell layer thick, and alcohol causes permeability in the gut lining. And so you become more susceptible to getting sick. Your immune system becomes weaker, but then more importantly, like in terms of digestion, you get more bloated, you get more gassy, you are more uncomfortable with your gut. And so with him doing that, along with a variety of other things, like that has made a significant impact in how your digestion feels.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy when I started reading about it. I mean, basically it was like a, intestinal yeast infection. That's really like the acute diagnosis. But I had like massive cravings for carbs and sugar. And if you read about it, it's actually the yeast trying, survival of the fittest, or just survival in general. Like the yeast survives off carbs and sugar. So it's actually signaling to your body that you should eat that, because it's a parasite that has no interest in dying. And so it's kind of fascinating, but I used to crave sugar like nothing else. I thought that was normal. And so like if you're in that position, it's relatively common, honestly.
Are you glad that we did the test?
Grows. Yeah, like there's so much on there that it's kind of like you don't know what to do with it. And so there's like some differing schools of thought on like their actual usefulness. But in my case, like it diagnosed
you have a wife that can help you through
a well common issue. Yeah, but yeah, get your yeast checked out, boys. So yeah, it's better. Yeah, I don't crave sugar like I used to. So yeah, it feels a lot better. I feel less bloated. So, I don't know. I just like generally don't like eating a lot of carbs anymore. You kind of like start to feel a certain way.
And when you say that, you mean like processed carbs, like pasta and
like white pasta, bread. I used to eat whatever the hell I wanted.
Now he's more like, if he's gonna have carbs, it's like things like sweet potatoes or like real whole complex carbohydrates. And it really has made a big difference for him. So let's wrap this up. And we'll do another one of these soon, because I feel like we didn't even cover like half the stuff we wanted to. But alcohol, social media, like those are two really good topics.
Two killers.
Wrap it up with one wellness practice that you've either gotten into on your own or learned from me that is feeling really good in your life right now.
I've talked about breath work a lot, so I won't use that one. I think gratitude journaling is actually, again, like I'm data driven. Like it actually, there's data suggests that when you wake up and journal and then right before bed, if you do the same, you actually are starting to condition your brain to assess what you're grateful for versus like stress
and like all the bad things, all the bad things,
which is like probably more the brain's natural tendency.
It is, because that's how we evolved as humans. We are wired and we've evolved to look out for danger and threats. Like, I mean, think about what we used to, go through. We used to have to go hunt and all that stuff for our food. So we're wired to look out for threats. And so you're right. Like when you can recondition your mind.
So that's a good one. It's really effective. And there's all these easy ways to do it. There's a book on Amazon, and I'm sure Barnes and Noble and all of them, just called like the Gratitude Journal, right? And it tells you exactly what to do. And you'd be shocked. It's pretty amazing. And it's a pretty easy one. It's 10 minutes a day. So
I like it. And I never thought my own husband would be doing gratitude journaling. So I really like it.
No, they're gonna get your shit together.
Cool. And then for me, I think that one of the things that I've been really doing a lot of with my meditation in the morning lately is being more intentional about making that a ritual. And so I will go upstairs while the kids are still sleeping. I will light incense. I will do an inspiration card, which is something I used to do before West was born. And then like less and less so after having one and then two kids. And it just makes that like groundedness into the morning and the meditation part feel less rushed.
Sure.
And so that's one thing. I like the, just in case anybody's wondering, I like the spirit animal cards. And I like the Doreen Virtue.
I don't get into that shit. That's just like children's games for me. But like,
true. When I've had you do inspiration cards with me before, you've done it.
I'm not into it. I gotta go to the bathroom now.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
I love you. Thank you, guys.
We really hope that you enjoyed that episode. You can follow me on Instagram at Wellness by Kelley. And if you're new around here, you can sign up for the WBK 7-day free trial where you can get access to all of my low impact workouts, blood sugar balancing, plant-based recipes, and guided meditations, all available on wellnessbykelley.com and on the WBK app.
Hey, thanks for listening.
Please make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also connect with us on social media at Wellness by Kelley. Drop us a DM for who you want to hear from.